Welcome to Not Your Average Neighbor, the podcast celebrating inspiring individuals and the amazing work they do in our community. I'm Ann Roshar, your host, inviting you to join me as we shine a light on stories of resilience, connection, and good news. Let's build a neighborhood that uplifts and inspires, one story at a time. Hey neighbors, it's Ann Roshar, your hostess with the mostest for Not Your Average Neighbor podcast. I am here live in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And let me just give you a little backstory on who we're speaking to today. So I was on a podcast with the amazing, Nicole Stute. And she is doing the Marvelous Middle Age podcast. And she usually has a theme of her podcast season. And I thought that was a really good idea. So for season 3, our theme is protecting our peace. It's mental health tips and tricks. It is scouring the internets and real life right in our community for people who we could lean on, learn from, and just get an overall sense of like, yes, I'm at peace right this moment. It doesn't have to last forever. We know it's not perfect, but so it is my extreme pleasure to introduce you to my guest today. Her name is Liz Burgin. Liz, welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you said yes. I know it's been a little bit since we talked in real life, but when I thought about doing this mental health type of theme for this season 3 of Not Your Average Neighbor, I said, I'm going to hit up my friend Liz and have her help us navigate through all the things. And so briefly, just real quick, Liz Burgin is an LMFT with extended trainings in trauma and relationships, and she believes people are complex and orients therapy using both skills and cycles, systems to interrupt unhelpful patterns so you can live a better life. So we're orienting therapy using both skills and cycles to interrupt unhelpful patterns so you can live a better life. Her specializations and interests are women in a transition, teens, eating disorders, grief, financial therapy, and trauma. So thanks again, Liz, for being here. I'm so happy that you said yes to this podcast that I'm doing. I was kind of going back and remembering how we were first introduced, and I believe it was through U conferences, which coincidentally enough, I just had my first episode. It was Rena Jensen and Kendra Eris. They were talking about all things U conference. And so we met at the U conference a few years ago. I think that's the one where we did the baby picture or young picture of ourselves and kind of looked at that and like dug in deep to what that little girl, you would want to say to that little girl. And that was really special for me. So we just hit it off right away, I believe. And I'm just so glad you're here.
Yes. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's kind of dig in to your past. Let's go into how did you come upon having a very important career, very important. We all need mental health therapists. We need them in every way. And how did you start that journey?
Yeah. Well, I was little, always wanted to have some type of, it felt like social justice career. Like I wanted to be a cop for like a while, right? To, save people. And then I grew up a little more and I was thinking maybe I'd be a guidance counselor. And then as I continued to develop, I went a different direction and I followed a different career for a while. And I stayed in more of a corporate setting, doing a marketing position. And it had always been on my heart to go back to what I originally had always wanted to do, which was to help people, which I do think you can do in a lot of positions. I don't think that it has to be specifically healthcare degree or something like that. But the real crux for moving into this field as a full-time job was all the transitions that I went to, and the feelings that would come up during those transitions would create all sorts of stress or anxiety. And then I was consistently sort of betting on other people and not myself. And I eventually ended up switching jobs, going through COVID, finding out I was pregnant with our first kid, starting grad school, like all these like big transitions. And so I recognized the need of having a unbiased third party as someone to talk to and really coach you through what it looks like to gracefully move forward in a way that is betting on yourself and not letting the circumstances around you impact the way you feel about yourself.
That is incredible. I think we were talking as we were getting ready for this podcast, and it was just something special to hear that you had all of these transitions going on in your life, and you knew that it kind of stopped you in your tracks, and you knew that you needed to also, not only make everyone else around you happy and successful, but you needed to make yourself happy. And going and getting your graduate degree in therapy, it's just, you're so lucky, right? Because not everyone finds it right away, or even mid. You are in the business of helping people. I am as well. I help them transition into a new home, into a smaller home, into a larger home, whatever. But definitely, therapy and real estate goes really hand in hand. I feel like you've got to read the room and all of that. You got to make sure
Yeah.
that things are handled delicately if needed, or, let's just sit your ass down and tell you no. I would never say that to any of my clients. Why is my nose itching? I feel like someone's talking about me right now, but
They
it must be.
everybody's always talking about you.
Always on everyone's mind. Anyway, so I feel like we have a little bit in common that way, but obviously you have the profession, the education to back up all of the therapy needs that we may have in our lives. So I want to learn a little bit more about your practice. When did you open Saunders Solutions?
So I opened my practice in 2021.
And you in Cedar Rapids, but do you also do telehealth?
Yeah. So, something with therapy that is so cool is there is a licensing board. So, you know that when you go to a therapist that has those letters behind their name, like LPC, LMHC, LMFT, LASW, right? It's all the words. I
Mhm.
always like that because you know that that person has a license, they have training. And that means that they can see you in the states they're licensed. So I am licensed in Iowa. So I can see you anywhere in Iowa. As long as you are, not in vacation in Illinois or Florida, we can talk through telehealth. And it's,
Okay.
I feel like that was such a, maybe like a silver lining that what went wrong, in COVID of, oh, like we can't actually see people in real life. And so this sort of shift happened where it was only really in office to moving that access to anywhere in Iowa. So if you live in rural Iowa, you can still get specialized care. For example, I have one of my colleagues, Lauren Wood. She has her LMFT as well, and she specializes in cancer. And
Mm.
I don't know how you could get that specialized care if there wasn't telehealth. So, yes, I
Right.
see anybody in Iowa and yep, anybody through telehealth. And then you just always have to check, right, if you're going to use it, right, like what that looks like.
Yeah, yeah, the dreaded insurance, I mean, it's
It can
just
be tough.
because not everyone has that covered through their insurance. So that's
Yep.
where it gets, tough as well, is that there's a limitation sometimes that makes you kind of stop in your tracks. But like, I don't know where I want to go with that other than reach out, obviously. There, I believe, is there a list of therapy outreach systems that you have?
So I could send you a list if you wanted
Yeah.
to link it or put it somewhere.
Okay.
There are a couple lists. So there's a list of therapists that different doctors' offices will sometimes have those lists, and I can send you that list as well. And then there's also something called like the Lynn County. So Lynn County has a community resources page that's linked on my therapy website,
Okay.
and it is community resources. But there's so many in Cedar Rapids specifically, right? I know that the people listening are not all in this one area, but even Cedar Rapids specifically, there's a mental health access center. There's the emergency room is always an option. There's two, which does incredible work, and they're not just in Cedar Rapids; they're also in Dubuque and some other places. And then, depending on what you need, there's so many other resources that are listed generally on city or county websites for community resources to find assistance, whatever that looks like.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you for that. And your first your is Burgin.com. And for
Yes.
all of your podcasts, workshops, and speaking opportunities, you will find Liz there, LizBurgin.com. My goal for this podcast and this series specifically is to give my friends and neighbors not quick tips, because therapy can be a long journey, but we feel like we're kind of like spiraling into a tizzy. What are some things that you immediately think about to offer your, or the people who you for help?
So I agree. The process of healing and the process of therapy can be longer. I will say though, I have seen people make considerable improvements within like 6 months. So it doesn't have to be this incredibly long process that people think. I believe the things to do when you are spiraling is to, first of all, stop. Like, stop
Yeah.
digging the hole, right? If the intrusive thoughts are coming and you're like, yep, that's true, right? And you just keep letting them come in, that is
Mhm.
clearly not going to help, right? There are really cool. So there's a form of therapy that has a lot of very skill based kind of things. And I like that. It's called dialectical behavioral therapy. And it's in there, there's a really cool worksheet, which I can send. And
Great.
it's called tip skills. So it's tip skills, it stands for things, right? So a tip skill, there's the changing the temperature of the water, right? And that's, you take a cold of water and you like shove your face in there for 30 seconds. And what happens is it like shocks your brain back into more of a homeostasis. And
Okay.
then yep, and then there's the two P's in tip. So it's paired muscle relaxation and paced breathing. And paired muscle relaxation is sort of targeting a part of your muscles. So like I'm going to like squeeze my hands really really tight, and I'm going to let go. And then I'm going to squeeze my biceps really tight. And so you go through all the muscles in your body and you just like you breathe out as you relax them. Paced breathing, the way to remember that is basically you take a shorter breath in and a longer breath out. So it can be a lot of things. My favorite paced breathing is taking a breath in for 4 counts, holding it 7 counts, but as long as you can, and then letting it out really slow, which should be about 8 counts. That's a good paced breathing kind of exercise. So, like I said, I can send you those, but that's a really good one, a really quick way to change your physiological response to panic and anxiety.
Right. I love those
Mhm.
ideas.
Yeah,
I feel like uh, ice water may not be just water may not always be easy, but I love those other two of just like squeezing it, like
yeah.
being in the moment, and you're telling your body, okay, now you're squeezing your biceps. Okay, now
Mhm.
so yes, please do
Yeah.
send that to me. Do you
Yeah,
have any other ones? And that was DBT, right? DBT
yeah,
therapy?
it's within dialectical behavioral therapy, which is a specific type of therapy, but this within there's something called the skills, and it's a
Yep.
distress tolerance
Skills.
modality. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, So, besides the tip skills, anything you can think of with your senses. So, if you think of your five senses, anything you can do to engage them is a grounding exercise. So, one of my favorites and that I think is probably most popularized is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the idea is you have five senses. And so it's like five things that you can see, four things that you can feel, right? And, it goes on, right? Three things that you can, maybe smell
Smell.
or, yeah.
Right.
So, yep. And
Okay.
it takes a long time actually to
Mhm.
actually go through and be like, five things I see. Okay, four things. That's a really good one. But like I said, anything to do with the senses is really good. I know right now like some to go touch some grass, right? Go hug a tree. It's like this
Yeah.
kind of joke right now.
Yeah.
But it's actually got a little bit of, it's true because you're touching something that is a sense, right? Smelling something, that can be a sense. Hugging someone, right? That can be both a sense and a physiological connection piece where you're maybe literally co-regulating somebody with your heart rate. I would say grounding is another quick tool to try to kind of interrupt the spiral, if you will. That would be a good one.
And what does that mean for those who don't know? Is it you just go outside in your bare feet and
Mm,
literally step on some grass, touch some grass?
literally. Yeah.
And is it just until you are like recalibrated and reset and
Yeah.
the bad feeling is like now dissipated and you can go back to real life?
Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
like that. I feel like I need to really ground in some beach sand right now, especially with the snow outside our
Yes.
door. But
I like that idea. Yeah, we should go.
yeah, now. Um, no, I love those ideas as far as the smells too, because like what I'm thinking, are there three things in the room right now that I even smell? And I'm like, no. But it makes you think about refocus on something else rather than
Mhm.
spiraling even further um into that feeling of chaos. So I
Yeah,
really
exactly.
like that idea. I must say, because I have ADD, I don't do a lot of reading. I do a lot more listening to podcasts. And so I really haven't been listening to therapeutic podcasts lately, but that is a really good one that I hadn't heard of before. So I definitely think that the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 with your senses and all of that, I think that's a great idea. Now, what other, obviously put down your phone, off the news. Those are easy, but then what do you do with yourself, right? So that's why I like
Mm,
those tips because
yeah.
then you're actually going to reset your brain.
Mhm.
I love
Yeah,
that.
and I think that there's so many other ways to I'm shifting a little bit into self-care, right? Because
Yeah.
yes, okay, when there's a fire, we need to put it out, and, that's where the grounding skills and those other things come in, but I think at its very crux, I had this really big kind of epiphany the other day, and it was just this moment where I have never been a better mom, a better friend, a better therapist, a better person when I push myself past my capabilities. Never. And I
Mhm.
think that is something I do feel self-care. I think that I am a reformed self-carer. I really was just like, "Oh, I'm gonna just get everything done. I'm gonna put everything on my plate." And then eventually I had a moment where I broke, and it is so important to make it a non-negotiable thing. I do not think that self-care is commercial.
Selfish.
I do yeah, and it's not selfish, I agree. So,
Right.
it's not selfish to take a break from things that you need to take a break from. It is not selfish to go out and do whatever you need to do for the night, whether that's, like, going to see a friend or going to the library or going to get a coffee by yourself, right? Whatever that means. And I would say that it's also not commercial, right? Like self-care isn't always a massage or getting your nails done or these like kind of, billion-dollar wellness industry, right? Kind of self-care. I think self-care is actually incredibly unsexy, I would argue.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
eating
Because,
food. It's
yeah,
getting sleep. Like that is self-care.
right. I self-care a $1.25 tree a lot because I feel like it just, if I, if I'm feeling just, it's an easy way for me to focus on something else and oh, I get a treat for myself. It kind of kicks in those endorphins. Also thrifting. I love going to thrift
Mm,
shops and that's what my looks like. And guess what? I can still have my phone on. I can still have my ear pod in my ear and then but if I need to take a call or whatever, but also like it just gives me a distraction while I'm finding some treasure in some thrift shop, right? So yeah, for
absolutely.
sure. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be sexy. Right now,
Mm.
I am going to be digging into I'm going to say it wrong because every creator that I've seen on TikTok since yesterday, since I discovered I'm going to do this, Kinasagwa, I think. And it is the art of just literally poking fabric into a collage of sorts.
Oh
And
yeah.
it looks so relaxing. It
Yeah.
looks so like something I can do with my low
Mhm.
level art skills. But
Yes.
yeah, so I'm digging into that soon, like
That's a big
probably later
one.
today.
There's a lot of art self-care. So,
Yeah.
um, I think that you talked about this, but the trauma therapy I do is specifically something called EMDR, but I mean, any therapist you go should be trauma informed.
Right.
And something really cool I learned in EMDR, which is like eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, is that bilateral stimulation is like this thing that really feels good for your brain. And it's fascinating because when you start to think about what that is, it's coloring, right? It's like
Mhm.
repetitive motions. Like this is all stuff, right? It's reading a paper book and like having your eyes move back and forth. And it's this process where your brain can calm down and synthesize the things that are happening and process. And I think that is why people like those gem paintings so and why they like, cross stitching and coloring because it is not only a mindfulness activity, right? Because you are slowing down and you're being present and you're on that. It's also a bilateral movement. So it's just
Mhm.
a fun little
Mhm.
fact for you.
I love that. I didn't
Mhm.
even yeah, I didn't think about that, but
Yep.
there's nothing better than, just sitting down and coloring sometimes, you know?
Totally.
And
Totally.
I am meaning to, make more intentional appointments with friends and
Yes.
bringing, just a book for us to because sometimes you want to say some things out loud to someone in a safe space and when you're a little bit more relaxed coloring or doing something else it's easier to let it come out of your mouth and then it's just a calm it's a quiet it's a
Yes.
calming thing.
Absolutely. I'm speaking at the employment conference in April, like April 8th, I think. My entire speech is literally called Chaos to Calm because
I love that.
yeah, it's this idea that I myself have been so guilty that it's like, "Oh, I'll just outrun it. Well, I'll just try harder, work harder, I'll just sleep less." And again, I have never actually been better when I do that. And so
Right.
this idea of like, how do you find calm, right? Like you find it through clarity, through like altruism, through like your leadership energy, through like momentum to keep doing those things. And how do you do it? And that idea of community that I love so much about the Not Your Average Neighbor podcast. It's like, yes, community is incredibly healing. Community is self-care in itself.
Yes,
Like
you're
if
right.
let me give you an example, okay? Because
Please.
we all go through life. Everybody in this on this earth is experiencing life, whether that is, on our continent or not, or it's in our socioeconomic class or not. Every single person is going through this thing. And every single person has resiliency. There's this concept called the window of tolerance, which I won't get into too much. But it's this idea of like, this is where you function. And outside of that window is, outside of that window, hypo arousal and hyper arousal, right? Where it's like you're on guard or you're like, I need a nap. And there's this thing that I love so much about connection and healthy coping mechanisms that widens our window of tolerance. It makes us a better person, I think. And so let's pretend we have person A and person B. And maybe person A is there, maybe they have the same life. Okay. They have minimal support in their life, but they have some friends. They have a career they relatively enjoy, even maybe though, like it is a little stressful, and they go to work and they have a terrible day and they're just trying to, like everybody was late for the bus and like they had a rough day. All these like things came up. They missed a meeting. I don't know, something like that. Right. And at the end of the day, like they drink 3 glasses of wine and they don't engage with their family or their friends and they watch trash TV until 3 a.m. Okay, that's maybe like person A. Person B, let's say, has the same experience, right? Everybody's late for the bus and, like you get to work and it's really stressful and you have like these rough meetings. And let's pretend that calls their mom or their best friend or something like that on their way home. And so for 15 minutes, they're engaging in healthy venting, which is like not like sympathetic venting, right? But like a true, like, I had a horrible day. And like, these are all the things that happen, right? And then letting it be said and having that person hear them. And then moving on to being like, what are you doing this weekend? Or, something like that, right? A connection conversation. And then when they get home, they take a deep breath before they get in the house and they communicate with their spouse, or, maybe they don't have someone that's supporting them at home. That's fine. Right. But it's like they kind of communicate with their team, whoever that is. Rough day. I'm coming around, but I had a bit of a rough day. And then you order pizza instead of like making a huge mess if that's going to trigger you or whatever. Right. And then they drink some water and they decide to watch like one episode of something and go to bed early, or take a shower and go to bed early. The difference between those two people is that one is employing healthy coping mechanisms and one is not. I am not going to dog on the person who's not employing healthy coping, because I think that there is a lot of stuff that you have to do most of the time in therapy to get to the place where you're employing those healthy coping mechanisms. But one thing, and it's that nothing will change if nothing changes. So the next day, person A and person B are going to wake up to a very different day.
One's going to be hungover from all the wine.
One's going to be hungover for sure. And there's nothing worse than that.
No, there really isn't. And then you're like, oh, yeah, it's because I had a shitty day yesterday. So then you're kind of living in the past. I am person A who wants to be person B. So I'm going to have to retrain my coping mechanisms here. Also seek some therapy, obviously. But no, they're totally both doable things that you can do right then for yourself. It is your choice what you're going to do. If you're going to just deep dive into TikTok and drink some wine, or, just feel it out, even if you're just speaking to yourself in your car on the way home, just so you can get it out and kind of do those breathing techniques. And then when you get home, your dog, you can say, listen, honey, this has not been a day, and I love you so much, and we're going to get cuddles, but I am just not in there right this second. Like, we've got to work on this,
Yes. And honestly, that is so valid to be real. I think it's actually very unhealthy to not acknowledge reality, to be like, my day was totally fine. I'm like, that's not actually healthy. Right. Because all we're doing is shoving it all down. And at some point we explode.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I love all of those tips. So tell us again, Iowa workforce Conference.
Oh, Iowa
No, sorry.
Employment Conference. Yeah, I'll be
Iowa
speaking there
Employment
April. Yep,
Conference. And that's in
yep,
at Prairie Meadows in Altoona. So iowaemploymentconference.com. She is speaking
mhm,
about chaos to calm, which I feel
mhm.
like I need more of these like lessons in life. And so if you are in the area or going to that conference, definitely hit up Liz. She is just a wonderful person. And you know what I love about you, Liz, is that you're not going to sugarcoat shit either. You're going to give it to
No.
us.
Mhm.
You need to be gentle, but you ain't going to sugarcoat it. You're going to say this,
Yeah.
you can sit in this misery or there's something you can do. It's your choice. And it may not be misery. Maybe it's, mental just capacity for the day or whatever. But, that's what I love about you is that
Yes.
you are, you tell the truth, tell her, and you tell us
That
like
is
it is.
one thing. I cannot tell a lie. It is actually, I feel I should be studied. Like I cannot actually tell a lie.
So you would not do on traders, which is all about lying.
No, I would do terrible for sure.
I probably would too because I hurt my insides too much to be like, no, I
Mhm.
really like you. I'm going to murder you on traders tonight. I couldn't do that either. So what are some
Yeah.
are you doing any apps, podcasts, anything are you suggesting as to get through those times when we don't have Liz to talk to right away? Do you have any of those resources?
Yeah. Well, I actually have a podcast mini series that I'm launching,
Yeah.
and it should be out. The goal was April 25th, but I think if things are, maybe rolling a little faster, probably April 5th. So, it's called The Life I'm Keeping is what it is called, and it's a mini series, so there's different sort of concepts, but the first one's about resilience actually and how to build it and how to have it and how to keep it. So, yeah, that'll be the first one. Other than that,
Okay.
there's a lot of really great podcasts. So, um, eating, disordered eating, one specific. I really love the maintenance phase. That's specifically about food and different science techniques and things like that. That one's a really good one. I love this is so NPR actually. I think has
Okay.
some of the best podcasts when it comes to the science of people and brains. And so when I think about the podcasts that are storytelling podcasts that are helpful that way, I think anything on NPR is going to be it.
Okay.
I have a lot
Well,
of
and their
book
voices seem
recommendations.
to all be very calming and
Oh
relaxing
yeah.
as well.
Incredible. It's like I'm Shankar Vedanta. Like you're like,
Yeah.
yes, be my best friend. Anyway, I think I have a lot of books, and a lot of like different resources that way. But when it comes to, so there's a book called Burnout, and that's by Emily Nagoski, I believe is the author's name. And she talks about the sort of ideas of burnout and the stress cycle and different things like that. Um, there are so many good books and workbooks as well. I really think one of the things that's important is to recognize what you need. So,
Mhm.
general stuff, that's a harder one. But if you're like,
Yeah.
I am struggling with this versus I am struggling with this, I think that there's different books that you need and will have to look up. I do
Mhm.
love as an overall book, Boundaries by Nidra Tawwab Glover. That is my favorite book. It is
Okay.
really focused on different types of boundaries, how to employ boundaries, things like that, and she does have a podcast, I believe, as well as, like, some resources on her website,
Okay.
but there are so many. There are so
Yeah.
many options, and
There really there really
yeah, I have a
are.
reading list on my website, on the lizburgin.com website, there's
Oh,
a reading
okay.
list, yep, and that could
Great.
be helpful, yeah.
Okay, super. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time today. I already feel like this was so valuable in just this little part of time, but certainly if they would like to get to know more about you and how, if they need assistance with therapy or, in the therapy world, or speakers, or listen to her upcoming podcast, you're going to find her at lizburgin.com. And thanks again so much today for spending time with us. And you just created some calm in my life. I get a little worked up about just like what I'm going to say and what I'm going to, because my brain is constantly just kind of chaos.
Yeah, that's okay. Chaos is not inherently bad. That's not the thing. It's when you feel chaotic. I think that's when it's like, oh, well, you don't have to feel that way.
Amen. And I just have a lot of tabs open. So it was nice to, turn down some of those tabs today and spend this
Yeah.
time with you. So thank you so much. And neighbors, don't forget to like, follow, share all the things. Not Your Average Neighbor. We will see you next week. Until then, have a great time, great week. And, some to do a little self-care for yourself. It is not selfish. It is very important to your well-being. So thanks so much, neighbors. We'll see you next week.